Hello. The things we are going to be looking at are from this song. I will play you part of it. I'm just going to go through the project. We're going to look at some of the main elements and some of my favorite little things. Let's pop into the main drop here. Main things we got going on here, drums, for sure. They are here. Drums are simple. We got kick, we got this cymbal thing, we got bounce of a snare that's like 10 snares and 100 claps and like a smoke detector, and don't steal that. You can, it's fine. Got some swingy hi-hats. That's it. That's the drums, pretty simple for the drop. The main stuff going on here is we've got this lead that sounds like this. And then other than that, we got the sub. We can just pop in, look at the sub real quick. Sub is 2 layers. There is a purely subby part, which, let's see, is it? Yes, sir. It's just made a sine wave, and then I did some stuff. I drew lines on a sine wave. We got some harmonics out here. Beyond that, no distortion. What's this doing? Oh, I thought I was smart. That's interesting. That is envelope emphasizing movement using the mix of a filter. Interesting move. Gotta respect it. And then the other layer, there's no MIDI on here because this one is just taking the MIDI from there. You can see it's accepting the sub MIDI right there. And that is just this noisy layer. Just a sine wave with some noise and then probably just a bunch of distortion. Oh, that's interesting. I'm out here cutting the sub part out of it. Okay, cool guy. What the hell? Look, never let them guess your next move, I guess. And then just compressing it a little bit. And all that is, along with the lead, hitting a saturator. And all that is getting sidechained over here. I don't know if we should talk. Who cares about the mix? Maybe I'll talk about that later. You don't care about mixing. Maybe you do. If you care about mixing, let me know. So let's take a look at this main lead layer here. Let's turn off all these effects here. So with no post-processing, at least directly on the channel, there's probably like, there's soothe, some other little things like a saturator. How hard is this going? Pretty hard. Hell yeah. The Serum patch is a saw wave that has a little bit of distortion on it here. I've got this sub thing that I'm using to modulate various parameters in here. You can see the volume on this is turned down. So this is one of my favorite things in sound design, is doing this stuff where you are modulating some parameter of a thing using a sub bass as a source of modulation. So it ends up making whatever you have it connected to feel like it is getting smushed by the sub, which is a really cool way to sort of like simulate a sense of things being more distorted than they actually are. Without any processing on the channel or in Serum, it sounds like this. For babies, the noise, you can see that that is getting modulated by the output of this sub. That's what's giving it this kind of fluttery sort of thing, which is pretty subtle. What can I say? Keep it, always keep it subtle. The noise is getting filtered, low end cut out of it, and then that's going into filter 2, which is, look at us. We're cutting lows, we're cutting highs. Your man is band passing. And then in here, this ALLPASS is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of giving this a more sort of metallic character and like almost like a quasi sort of small room reverb sort of thing. You can see the drive on here is also getting modulated by that sub, which is going crazy. Also, for the record, you can see that this is turned down -7. It's a 5th down, obviously in a different octave, but it's a 5th down from this guy. And that's because the note that I'm kind of living on up here for this melody is a 5th up from the root. So the actual sub is playing the root note of the song, but this melody is playing way up high, like a 5th-ish. And so this is playing what the actual sub is playing. So that will sort of more realistically imply that we're smushing it with the real life sub, which we are, but we're doing it here too, double time. The ALLPASS, if anyone's interested in ALLPASS filters, we can talk more about them. This is sort of like a wonky one that does more than your average ALLPASS filter. Speaking of ALLPASS filters, we have diffuser here, which is sort of a little ode to disperser, which disperser, ALLPASS filter. Diffuser, also an ALLPASS filter, but seems like, I don't totally know, but seems like you can sort of stack multiple ALLPASS filters on each other, which, for the record, if you're curious, what an ALLPASS filter does is, you know how most filters, ones like these, we are making adjustments to the volume everywhere from this cutoff above is getting turned down. The way that ALLPASS filters work is that instead of affecting the volume or the amplitude of frequencies, is that it is instead at a cutoff point adjusting the phase position. So it's basically like you're creating a really short delay between the frequencies above a certain point and below a certain point, which is why if you push an ALLPASS filter hard, you can start to get this like, pew, because the lower frequencies are happening later. So you hear the high stuff first, you hear, and then later on, you hear the goo. So that's why it goes, pew. Shout out to ALLPASS filters. You can create them by using things that have bad multiband crossovers. You can do it with EQ3. We love to learn. Anyway, in here, I'm using this a little bit for this like dispersory sound, the like bubbly swoopiness, but like mostly I'm just kind of like using this to make it louder. I'm just using this drive. You can hear there's a little bit of like bubbliness, but it's like, is subtle. You know me, subtle. Then we got some distortion here, which we are doing a teensy bit of modulation on here, which is being modulated by this LFO, which is basically just kind of reinforcing the overall envelope of the sound. And then we have this guy, which I think is probably doing something similar. Yeah, also just kind of acting as an additional kind of envelope that is sort of shaping the sound, both the overall volume of the thing, because this one is just controlling the output of the effect, which results in it just controlling the overall output of the entire sound coming out of Serum, because it's the last thing I have on here. And then in addition to that, we are shaping it some more by using this low pass filter to kind of have it get a bit darker as it reaches the end of this envelope. That's it. Cut the low stuff. We simply don't need it. Turn on this reverb rack. We got the dry signal, allegedly. What's this doing? Convolver with no impulse response? It's a hot tip. Don't do that. I think that's a mistake. But then I've got this parallel effect that is just going through a reverb that I'm then very likely smushing, get smushed, make up gain, and the output turned up. So let's turn the compressor off of this and whatever else I have on here. Sick. So what's it sound like when it's smushed? Hell yeah. You can also hear, sorry for cussing, you can hear that I've got a big old sidechain on here. This whole thing, I should have not had this on earlier, but what can you do? Let's turn the sidechain off. Very not subtle. We're on a subtle vibe right now, not subtle without the sidechain, but here we are. Then we're cutting out the low end there. And then this guy is just automating a utility, which this is kind of controlling, not kind of, literally controlling the reverb throw that I'm doing here. That's kind of at certain moments that they just felt right. They felt like good moments for little throwy things. So this is only playing it all when I want there to be these reverb throws. But you can notice, I know I don't have this other processing on, but if we play both of these simultaneously, in keeping with the subtle theme, reverb throw, not super prominent, which like we'll get there, foreshadowing of that. We got this little auto pan thing that turns on for like one moment, does it over here. Let's hear what that sounds like. Oh, that's cute. Does a little, we like that just for some texture there. I got Flutter going on here, one of my favorite plugins, also sort of in service of that idea of simulating the sub smushing other elements without you necessarily needing to actually smush something with your sub. So I have this sidechain to my sub and it's essentially doing amplitude modulation on whatever I have it on, which in this case is the whole output of everything up until this point. And so I just have that for a split sec just to give some movement. Look, there's no shortage of smushing going on here, or attempts at smushing. Shout out Jersey Shore. Beyond that, we're hitting my dog, my good friend. We're going hard. We are turning up 11.6 dB. Classic move. Do too much with this and then freaking pull it back. Because even though I've got all this low end stuff cut out earlier in the thing, as soon as you start doing like upward compression and doing additional smushage, there's a good chance you're going to get some low end back in here. Actually, let's see. Do I have some? Sure do. She's back. Cutting that out and then using this comb filter. The hack. This is my secret width weapon because this gives you mono-compatible width, which is very cool. Trick with this is, I don't know if you have to have the polarity set to minus, but you do have to have this set to stereo. And then it's cool because you can move it. You know what? Let's just freaking duplicate it and I will show you what I am talking about. Let's turn this up. And then usually I tend to keep this between like 60 hertz and like 150 hertz. But what's cool is you can bring the mix back and it doesn't get all phasey or whatever. And when you get it however wide you like, sort of within the range I suggested here, if you put it into mono, it just sums back to the original signal, which is super cool. Here's what it sounds like when I just like move it around. Below around like 60, that's when other things begin happening in terms of they're feeling like there's more of a delay going on. Got to be careful with this, you know, the same with any sort of like stereo imaging thing. If you go too crazy, your song starts to feel uncanny. Control yourself. Great power and all that. Soothing it. What's this doing? It's simply soothing it. Shout out to the act of simply soothing it. What's this utility doing? Doing a lot of little cuts here. Oh, this, okay, cool guy. Doing that looks like just to create a sense of separation between the articulations. And like this might even be kind of combating some of what's going on with the reverb throw. Like they might be overlapping a little bit. They're overlapping a little bit. So this utility is just cutting out everything, and it comes after this utility, which is the one that is turning up and down the reverb for that reverb throw. And so you can see there are moments where the reverb is on its journey to the tippity top, but it gets absolutely turned down by this utility at the end here. But that's kind of okay because I like the sound of a big reverb throw getting just cut out. That is our lead. Over here, we've got this rave throw. This was actually inspired by going in and like picking apart some of the newer Space Laces songs. I think this one specifically, Bounce Like This, that's him and Control Freak. I noticed that they have these really big reverb throws in there. And when I was listening to it, may be true, may not be true, but that it felt like the thing that was acting as the reverb throw sounded more like a synth sort of thing. I thought, well, that's a good idea. So make a thing that feels very much like a reverb, but because it's a synth that I'm designing from scratch, I don't need to try to do a bunch of beefing up to a reverb signal, that I can have a bit more control of it at the source. Let's listen to it with none of this processing on it. All right, brother, you've done it. Holy moly. Pro tip, you want to see a cool thing? BS audio utility for the discerning producer. Coolest thing here to me is like the bass left or right versus bass mono, because bass mono, it's a freaking lie, at least the way that it works inside of the Ableton utility. Could talk about that, where my mixer's at. But one thing that's cool that this has is if you hit this, anything that will be trailing off in here, like reverb or whatever, will stop when the transport stops. So if you press pause, it'll stop ringing out, which is really great for stuff like this that has a bunch of time-based effects on it. You can see it's still going to town, but our friend says, I don't care. Stop that. In here, what's going on? Filter. Compression. Reverb. All this like is just like to build texture, because what I'm going to be doing is just turning up the volume of this to just come in some moments. And then we're cutting out some low end there. Beyond that, what are we doing? Probably some width or something. Yup, another comb filter. Subtle stuff. And then, oh, okay, cool, not so subtle thing. Looks like I'm delaying the sides a lot, because this is sort of like a secondary element that accompanies the main lead. This is something that I'm comfortable making feel maybe more wide than I would maybe normally be comfortable making a thing, because the lead is mostly right down the middle. So this is sort of like little decoration thing on top that is gonna, let's freaking listen to it just with this on. But interestingly, I'm splitting this up where I'm using a utility. If you didn't know, you right click on a utility, it lets you put it into mid-side mode. So I got just the mids over here, just the sides over here, and the sides are getting delayed just a little bit, which not quite the Haas effect, because the left and the right are the same. So we're just delaying the sides. Let's hear what it sounds like when I put this freaking utility on here that is just doing these swoops. We're swooping. Cute. In context. Cool. Beyond that, we also have flutter, which looks like going all the time, which is sidechain to my sub, also giving us a little bit of that like fake distortion kind of thing going on. Subtlety. Cutting out lows, a little bit of highs, cutting out more lows, and then the thing we just did. One thing I'm realizing that I haven't mentioned yet is what's actually going on in the MIDI here, because that's maybe the thing that gives this most of its character. I got all these pitch bends in the MIDI. It's just that, once again, sorry for being subtle. Look at us. We're kind of like constantly moving up. We're detuning, and like the sub is doing this. That reverb ravey layer is doing this. Here's what this would sound like if it didn't have pitch bends on it. It's something, but it's not the something we were going for. Way cooler. So throw and lead together as a team. And then that without the sidechain. Oh, it doesn't have the sidechain. With the sidechain, which those look like this. Here's my snare one. Classic. I don't usually do it like that, but I wanted this song to have sort of like a chippity choppity, like things almost feeling like they're getting cut off. Like I was going for sort of like a crunchy chopped up sort of feeling. What's the kick one looking like? That's a little more the way I imagine it typically looking. Hell yeah. Keep in mind, this is just the sidechain on the lead, not the one on the sub, because if it were on the sub, I might go, hey, who are you? I don't want you coming through, but we can take a look at that. So with the sidechain, here's what it sounds like. Sounds like the song. It's the song. That's the lead. If you want to see what's going on, oh, brother, look at this. Simplicity. The lead and the sub are being sidechained by the same shaper boxes. Very utilitarian. Yeah. When I look at this with the sub, okay, cool guy. Because now I'm curious. Let's listen with the drums and the sub just by themselves. Am I fucking up? Are we getting some, although phase correlation's pretty close to being locked in there, so maybe not an issue. Look, do we care? Should we care? Here's when to care. The time to care about phase correlation between a kick and a sub is when it sounds bad. I recommend take a look at it, shift some things around. If you wanted to shift it around, that's as easy as presuming your sub, the random phase position is turned down. All you got to do is move that around, and you'll be adjusting the phase relationship between those two elements. Sometimes it sounds best when they're like perfectly lined up. Sometimes it doesn't sound best. Sometimes it doesn't matter, because the entire time your kick is happening, your sub is getting cut out until the end of the kick. But as you can see here, I always gotta be a bad boy, dude. We're letting like 1.5 cycles come through here. But they're pretty much aligned here, and also I don't care for this song, at least in this context. Or let's rephrase. I think it sounded good, so I'm not stressed about it. There it is. Lead, sub, kind of looked at drums. I got other elements in here, but we'll look at the things in there momentarily.